In this video we're going to take a look at the adjustment brush. The adjustment brush allows us to make changes to one part of the image without affecting another, and it's something we need to do quite a bit in our image editing. We do need a little bit of space on the right hand side to open up the adjustment brush tools, so I think this is another case for hitting that Shift and Tab key to lose all of the palettes, and then I'll just hit the F8 key to bring back the one on the right that I'm interested in. I don't need to see the histogram at the moment, and you may even recognize this image from a previous video, so I can close that down too. This tool is made up of two main parts. We can use a brush to make a mask, and we can change using the effects section what is within the mask. Let me open both of these up together. So you can see we have a huge array of changes we can make to a strategic part of the image, and this is how we make it with our brush and our mask. Let me give you a brief demonstration of how it works by going down to the bottom of the screen, bottom left, and ticking the box that says Show Selected Mask Overlay. I'm going to turn the mask that I'm about to spray on permanently. If we look down here, I've got the density of the mask at maximum, which is the setting I usually keep, and we've got a fairly big brush here, so what I can do is just start masking on the picture surface. Now you can see my mask has a soft edge, and that's because of the brush that I'm using. I can adjust that. I can take the feather off of that brush and make my brush much more sharp edged, and sometimes we need this and sometimes we need a soft brush. The vast majority of the time I would suggest a soft brush is probably the best choice. Within the masking that I've made, I can now edit that image. You'll notice a pin appears over here. One of the strengths of this tool is I can also go to the top right and say I want another pin because I want to change something differently on the top left of my image as I do in the center. Now the new pin shows with that black dot, which tells us it's live and ready to be edited, and this pin is temporarily turned off, and I can switch between those two pretty quickly and easily, and I can make as many of these as I want. Already we've got 3 pins to work with. In addition to that, I can adjust the mask that I've made. So if I start to do some editing and I've found that I'm overdoing the mask, I've got an option here under the brush controls to choose to erase. I can adjust the flow rate of how quickly or slowly I do that, so it makes it measured. And now I can start brushing over there, and I can start to remove my mask. But to show it to you in demo, probably I'd better have the flow up high so you can see that I can actually create a mask and remove parts of it, so we get the editing we're doing absolutely perfect. When we are erasing from a mask, you'll notice there's a minus sign right in the center. And when I want to go back to creating masks again, or maybe editing the one that's turned on, I need to go back to the brush section of the adjustment brush and select the appropriate brush, of which I have 2. So if I pick up the A brush, I've got my feather maximum, my flow maximum. So with the pin clicked so we can see the black dot, I can start masking again. We have the opportunity to make 2 brushes, and that's because we may have need to work in one area with a large soft brush and maybe in another area with a small hard brush, and there I can switch between the two. There's the hard brush, so I've got 2 brushes in my armory that I can switch from and to quickly and easily. And any of these pins, when I select them, I can just make sure they're highlighted with that black dot, and if I want to remove them, I can just hit the delete key. We have one center left, which I'll delete, and one at the top right, which I'll delete. Generally speaking, I would work with the show selected mask overlay turned off, and I would have the auto mask on. So if, for example, I was masking here, I'm actually physically masking, but of course I can't see a thing. But if I stop and mouse over the pin, then I can. So it's a personal choice, I would suggest, whether you have this mask turned on while you mask and turned off when you edit. But after a while, I guess you'll be like me, you'll get used to how it works and you'll work in this manner. Generally speaking, even though we can't see the mask, we know it's there. And of course, when we start to change the sliders up here, we can certainly see the effect of it. What I'd like to do here, though, is to delete that. Let's do a little practical exercise with this particular image, which you may remember. Just for a moment, I'm going to close the adjustment brush, and I'm going to reopen my basic tab. When we worked on this image, we virtually used most of the vibrance that we have here. But I was saying that when we increase saturation, saturation increases all of the colours, so that sometimes if we wanted to put a lot of impact into the blue here, I can do that, but it has a negative impact on the reds and the other well saturated colours. Well, let's use this as an exercise. Let's live with that saturation that I've applied. Let me tuck the basic tab away and reselect my adjustment brush. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a lot of the saturation off. Let's go to the maximum. But I'm taking the saturation off of the area I'm about to mask. So the key thing here is to get the brush size appropriate. So let's drop the brush size down a little bit. And there you can see it. Let's put it in the middle where you can see it clearly. And also the flow. Well, I've got the flow set to 29 in the flow register, and I'm going to I keep going to call that percent, and then I stop myself from doing it, but it goes up to 100, so calling that 29% or 30% is probably not a bad thing. What I can do now is start to spray, and as I do so across the top, we're going to reduce the saturation in just that area. Now, how much we saturate or desaturate that area depends on two things: how much of the saturation we've taken off in the effect area here, and how much we're masking. And I think my mask flow can go up a little bit. Let's push it up to something like 60, and I'll do the reds down here. And you can see I'm a little bit heavy with this tool. In other words, I've probably got my flow a little bit on the heavy side, but sometimes that's acceptable when you're doing a demonstration like this, because it does allow you to see the effect that I'm putting in. And I'm taking the colour down quite quickly here, and it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do, leaving the focus on the blue colours. And as you can see, with a bit of care, I can move all around and take all of that impact off. So we've got the strong blues, but without the overpowering reds, yellows and oranges. At any time we like, we can go to the little switch down on the adjustment brush, and we can turn on and off the effects of that. And it's not a bad thing to do when we first start using these tools, because we don't always appreciate the changes we've made, because we make the mask or create the mask in a gradual way. But there you can see the before and after, oversaturated and a nice repair. Let's assume for a moment we want to change or do something with the yellow colours of the words at the top of the screen here. I'm going to zoom in to the H there by touching the Z key. Now, if we wanted to mask this area differently to the previous, we must remember to select a new mask. Otherwise, we're just going to apply the same settings to the new mask as we're going to, or as we did previously. So here we need to click New, and then I'm going to start spraying down here. But what it's doing is taking away all of the colour. Now, if I do a little bit of masking, then I'll stop and show you why that's happening. I think it's just sufficient if we do the H of the word. So there's the changes that I'm going to make. If I go over the pin, I can see clearly the mask I've made. You can see a little bit down the bottom right there that's a little bit missing. This is where we can sometimes just repair that and have another look. That's why I think it's a choice whether you turn the mask on permanently while you're doing this or not. But why are we losing all the colour there when that wasn't my intention at all? The way our modern software works is it generally remembers the last settings we used. So it's a simple matter here that last time we used this brush we took all of the saturation off, and all it's doing is applying the same thing. So all we need to do here is to double click and reset that back to where it started from. So that's the default setting for the yellow colours there. So now I can decide what changes I want to impart into that pin and adjustment brush. So if I was looking to increase the saturation of the yellows, then as you can see there, as I step it up and back, I can do that quite easily. And once I've got the changes in that I want there, then with my brush selected, I can then repeat those in the one next to it and any of the others that have got the colour that I want to enhance. And it's not just the yellow, of course, it's going to enhance all of the colours in those letters. But there you can see with a soft edge brush we can work quite quick and quite seamless in adjusting certain sections of our image. Let me hit the Z key and we'll take a look. The one thing to remember with the work we're doing here is everything is safely stored, because if we hit the F7 key and we open up our panel on the left hand side, we know within the history panel we can go back to every single solitary change we've made. And the changes we have made are in two strategic locations, both of them identified by a pin. This pin's turned on, this one's turned off. If I want to switch them round and change things, I can. If I hover over the pin, I get to see the mask. So at any stage, I can make a change. Now this would be a great tool for those techniques where maybe we're creating a monochrome image with just a little strategic colour coming through. But maybe just to finish, I can suggest let's just hit the new button here. Let me just do a little bit of masking on here. I'll take all of the saturation off completely. Now if we push the flow rate up to its maximum and we hit the Z key and zoom into that area, it wouldn't take me too long to remove the colour completely from this area. Let me make the brush bigger. In fact, what I'll do as well is I'll take the feather off of this, because this is quite solid here, and we can actually maybe a little bit, and I'm just going to work around the edge. I'm using a graphics tablet here. It's a Wacom graphics tablet, and for this type of work I really don't see as you can do such an effective job with a mouse. Well, in fact I know you can't, because that's why I have one of these. The thing is with these tools is they just take a few days to get used to, because they work slightly different to how a mouse works. But you can see there, I think I have far more control with this than you would ever have with a mouse. So a little bit of therapeutic colouring in. This always reminds me of those children's colouring books that adults can't resist picking up sometimes. This is a bit like it. And remember what we're doing again, I can always change my mind. Even with the mask that I'm making, if I've done it wrong in one area or I've overspilled, I mean the sort of thing I'm thinking of is that sort of thing, then all I've got to do is to select my erase option, go outside, make an appropriate brush, and I can repair it. Z key, and there's the image completed. Finally, to move on to any other editing we want to do, or even if we wanted to export the image, we need to click Done. The panel will be collapsed and we're ready to open up the other panels and either continue working or prepare for the next image.